Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Sever7, and today we are taking a look at the Tackom Unnamed. Now, this knife came from the Lefty Pass-Around group. It is not mine to keep, and it will go back to the Lefty Pass-Around group after my review. This knife is a Bestech OEM, and it was designed by the owner of Tackom Knives. Now, to my understanding, this was his very first knife design, and it took him some 2 years of kind of reiterating and redrawing and prototyping before he landed on this overall design and aesthetic. And first impressions, for me, this is a thick boy. This is kind of a beastly chonker. Not so much that it's cumbersome to carry or that it's going to take up too much room in your pocket, but without being considered an overbuilt knife, I would say this guy's pretty chubby. If we do just a quick side by side, you can see the scales are quite a bit thicker on the Unnamed. And then if we look at the carry profile here, yeah, we have all this blade kind of sticking out compared to the Kubi Velvet Snake. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just pointing out that this is a bit of a chunker. And it's got a really unique look to it, mostly because of this sort of a clip point style blade. It's not really something you see very often. Now, as far as the handle goes, we've got this really nice milled titanium pattern. It does have, the finish on it is grippy. I don't know if you can hear it. Oh, sorry for the shake. I don't know if you can hear that. But this thing is meant to be gripped and held onto. You're not going to lose this. Even if it's raining, I mean, as long as you have a grip on it, this thing's not sliding out of your hands, which is pretty awesome. We have T8 hardware for everything except the pivot. The pivot screw is going to be T10. And then we do have a reversible milled titanium deep carry pocket clip. So it's going to be good for lefties. We do have about a 1/3 back spacer. And I don't see a lanyard hole. So anyone that uses a lanyard, you're kind of out of luck. Yeah. So no lanyards. As far as the ergonomics go, this is a relatively neutral handle. So if you get back behind the I forgot what you call this, but you know what I'm saying. If you get back behind here, you have a full 4-finger grip. I wear large gloves. You get a 4-finger grip, and it does get a little hot spotty right here whenever the fat of your fingers kind of, grips in between the two scales. But honestly, it's really not too bad. And it's really only if you're squeezing down super hard that you're going to feel that. Now, you do have plenty of room to choke up if you want to. And this is going to give you more control overall for some of those precision cuts. You have functional jimping right here, and it's attached to the ramp up the blade, which means that, not only are you going to get good jimping, but you also have this natural stopping point where you'd have to overcome that ramp before you like slip off or slide forward. We also have jimping right up here. And what's cool is that you can pinch grip down here. You have plenty of room to do that and put your finger right here. That way you can do your draw cuts and precision cuts. But what I found is you can also, while supporting the handle, you can also grab right here in this blade window and get even more precise if you need to. If you're making some really fine, careful cuts, this gives you maximum control because you can just move your wrist and then the blade will go with you, right? So you can start here and then tilt your wrist and come over here, tilt your wrist, come over here. So there's a lot of control that you can get with this knife in different positions. As a matter of fact, I think you could even, not that it's optimal, but you could even get up here over the hump into that clip area, that clip point area, and make your cuts as well. So there's a lot of versatility. Despite the robustness of this knife, there's a lot of versatility for how you can do your cuts, and I appreciate that. Now, as far as the weight goes, I'm sure it's a heavy knife coming in at 4.9 ounces. I mean, that's not a light knife, but considering the size of it, it doesn't feel that heavy. Like it doesn't actually feel heavy at all. So I know 4.9 is quite a bit, but for the amount of knife that you're getting and the amount of material, I think it feels very balanced in hand. And that's because of the generous milling on the inside. I don't know if the light's going to catch that for you. Hopefully it does. But there's a tremendous amount of milling done on the inside to keep that weight down. As far as the balance goes, yeah, it looks like we're going to be balanced right about where we'd want our pointer finger to be at. So right about here. So it's maybe slightly butt heavy, but that's not the end of the world. You know, it still feels fairly balanced in hand. It doesn't feel like it's mega butt heavy. And if you choke up here, it still feels perfectly fine. So I would say as far as weight goes, I would say it's well balanced. And we know that we've got the functional jimping. Now, as far as its blade shape goes, you could go a few ways with it. This is kind of clip pointy, but it's also kind of drop pointy because the point is in line with the pivot. But you could also say, you know, sheep's foot, maybe even Warncliffe because of the robust tip. It's just kind of hard. It's like an amalgamation, a little bit of everything. So just like an everything bagel, we're just going to call this the everything blade because I would have a hard time. And if somebody in the comments wants to nail it down for me, by all means, yeah, educate me because I'm not sure which feature would take precedence for this knife. I personally would probably just say sheep's foot, modified sheep's foot. I think is what I would ultimately land on. We've got this kind of semi-reflective stonewash finish. We've got a flat grind going down the blade. And we are rocking MagnaCut steel. And MagnaCut is going to be known for incredibly high corrosion resistance at a 9.5. More importantly, though, because there's knives like Vanax that reach higher than that. More importantly, though, with MagnaCut is it maintains a very well-rounded attributes despite having that really high corrosion resistance. Typically with knives, the more you boost one attribute, the more you have to sacrifice another. But with MagnaCut, not only does it have killer corrosion resistance, but it's either average or above average in every other category, which is part of the reason MagnaCut steel is so very popular, is because it doesn't really suffer with those weaknesses that other knives might have, on top of being insanely corrosion resistant. Now, the optimal HRC for MagnaCut is considered 62 to 64. That's optimal. And the website claims that the HRC for this knife is 62 to 63, which means worst case scenario, you're at 62. You're still within that optimal MagnaCut heat treat range, which I think is awesome. Making sure that the knife is smack dab right where it's supposed to be, even in worst case scenario, is something I wish other companies would do. Which means that, you know, with the great, because like if you have awesome attributes for a knife, but your heat treat sucks, you're not maximizing those attributes. So it's almost like they don't matter, right? In addition to that, though, this has awesome blade geometry because it'll do amazing slicing, but it's also going to be great at poking. And your blade geometry trumps the knife attributes, right? You can take a D2 steel and give it phenomenal geometry, and it can outperform MagnaCut even properly heat treated Magna Cut if the blade geometry sucks, right? So blade geometry here is excellent, very functional. Heat treat is optimal. So you're going to get a lot of life out of this knife. And then even if we come down here and we look at the plunge grind, it's actually a little higher than I'd want it to be, but you're still going to get probably 3 or 4 sharpenings out of this before you start to get a smile. So I would say not the greatest plunge grind, but a heck of a lot better than many that I've seen. Right, you definitely have some life to shave off of this. As far as the detent goes, this is a plunge lock, which means it's a button lock, and you push a button that pushes a button that pushes a spring, and then it releases the blade. So we don't have a liner lock or a frame lock up here. We don't have anything like that. So the only thing that's acting as a detent on most plunge locks, like say this Wii kite fin, the only thing that you're really getting is the tension of the spring and the weight of the blade. But this blade isn't heavy. So you're really just relying on the tension of the spring, which means that most button locks don't have much of a detent, if any at all. Thankfully, this knife does have a bit of detent because it's got the pressure from the spring, but also it's a hefty blade, which means that it gives you the impression that there is in fact a detent there. And what's cool is having a blade window like this, you can kind of adjust the detent on your own. If you want a stiffer detent, you can go up to the top. And if you want a lighter detent, you go down to the bottom to get more leverage. So that way you can kind of find your spot where the detent feels the best for you, and then just flick from there. As far as the acoustics, we have a kind of a thwack and then a chink. You know what I'm saying? Kind of a deeper and then a lighter, which I kind of enjoy. Plunge locks are not my favorite. I'd always prefer to have either a top liner lock or a frame lock, liner lock, anything like that. But as far as plunge locks go, I would say this is doing pretty good. We have a guillotine on the drop. You can push the button lighter and get less of a guillotine, but I mean, that's kind of a pain. So just assuming everyone's going to push the button down all the way, it's a guillotine. Now, is this going to be lefty friendly? Well, that's a benefit to plunge locks, is that they are lefty friendly. The only difference is they're going to push the button with their pointer finger. Now, as you guys know, I don't do anything lefty. So if I can operate this lefty, literally any lefty is going to be able to do it with ease. I wonder if I can thumb flip it. Yeah, kind of. And with it having that reversible pocket clip and being lefty friendly, anybody can pick this knife up and right out of the gate start using it. Now for an overall length, we're rocking 8 inches with a blade length of 3.44 inches and an overall weight of 4.9 inches. That's going to give us a blade to handle ratio of about 0.75. About 0.8 is whenever we start to get that like illusion of a 50-50, right? And that's where I like it to be. So if, let's say everything slid down a little bit and the blade ended like right here on top of this pivot, then we'd be a lot closer to looking like having the illusion of a 50-50 blade to handle ratio, which is always my preference. Doing a size comparison, let's go ahead and put it up against, we'll bring back the Wii kite fin. Quite a bit bigger than the Wii kite fin. We're going to bring out the Kubi Velvet Snake. A little bit longer than the Velvet Snake. And let's go ahead and pull out the Mini Momo. and we're coming in quite a bit longer than the Mini Momo. We'll do one more. We'll do the Bird Blades full-size Sweeney. And we are quite a bit longer than the full-size Sweeney. Now, what's the price on this bad boy? This knife is coming in at $269.99. Now, would I carry it, and is that a fair price? Well, for starters, and I know I've talked about this before, Best Tech is the most expensive OEM that, we have access to as far as Chinese OEMs go. They're more expensive than Riyadh. So, and a lot of people that have had work done by Best Tech have said that if you're selling anything of quality in the 200 range, that's very, very aggressive pricing. And I tend to agree because I've seen many Best Techs reach over $300 for similar materials to this knife. So I would say $269 for what you're getting, properly heat treated Magna Cut, amazing geometry, full titanium, milled titanium at that, and even your button. Even the button has diamond texturing on it, which just adds a little more grip. I mean, so, we have the functional jimping. We have a milled and, creatively designed pocket clip. I mean, lefty friendly, fully reversible. Yeah, I would say $269 is a fantastic price for this knife. Now, would I carry it? Yes, I would. With the heat treat being spot on and the versatility of this knife, whether the job is big or small, you could cut boxes easily all day long if you had to. But you still have the precision and the control and that little tip if you need to do, more precision-based cuts. Even if you're opening a letter, this tip allows you to get into something very gently and just slide it open. I think this blade is a lot more versatile than most. It does everything pretty darn well. And for those reasons, and the acoustics, I would absolutely carry this knife. Now, my question is, would you carry this knife? Does this knife have a spot in your collection or your daily rotation? Whether it does or doesn't, drop a comment down below and let me know. And please do me a favor and hit the like button. Follow my Instagram at SEVRSEVN and subscribe to the channel. We are just under 400 subscribers and we have a huge giveaway at 500 subscribers. So do me a favor and do yourself a favor and make sure you're subscribed for that giveaway. Other than that, we're really all squared away. I'll have this knife linked below. Oh, and there is rumor that another version of this knife is going to be released in the future as a top liner lock, right? So keep your eyes out for that. If you go to the Tackom website that I have linked below and you sign up for notifications, you'll be notified. If you really like the knife, but you just wish it was a top liner lock, then get on their mailing list. That way, whenever it comes out, you're the first to know. Because I guarantee as soon as this becomes a top liner lock, this sucker's going to sell out like nobody's business. Like the second you find out about it, it's going to be gone, right? So you really want to get ahead of the game. But otherwise, that's all I have for you guys. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the interactions and engagement. And until next time.